Chrisean Rock and why we need to start blaming mothers. This is going to be probably the most controversial video of this little Chrisean Rock series which I'm doing, which is going to be a couple of videos long. It's going to be in the playlist, guys. You can watch it all the way through. Now, before I get too far into it, first of all, before you judge what I'm saying, hear me out. Second of all, I'm not just attacking mothers. I'm going to also make a separate video about fatherhood as far as this Chrisean Rock situation. And third of all, what was the third of all thing? Oh yeah, I'm not attacking. I want to make this clear because people, I don't know what it is in society. It's actually something that frustrates me highly, that we are so protective of parenthood because it's like, oh, but parents try so hard and you don't know how it's the hardest job in the world. So it's almost like we get to the point where there's no room to actually assess how we do better at doing it, because even talking about it as though everybody's not already doing everything they possibly could do is just an insult, right, type of thing, is very problematic in how we end up here. And I kind of think that in society today we've gotten to the point where we've now created an environment where any parent cannot be held accountable to anything. The children can be held accountable for everything, right? They're somehow accountable for everything, but the parent can't be held accountable for nothing, because being parent is a difficult job. And that's not a good enough excuse, guys. Just like if somebody's a leader, right, people get onto people like pastors. Just because being a pastor of a church is a difficult job doesn't mean you get to be a bomb-ass pastor. You see what I'm saying? And so that's why I'm talking about this. Now, I'm starting with motherhood for a number of reasons. Number one, and I'm going to be talking about this with Chrisean Rock. Okay, guys, so if you're watching the series, you'll know what this is all about. Stay tuned, guys. Just watch, hear me out for the whole video. Just hear me out, okay? It's not going to be long. I try to make these videos shorter, right? Just hear me out, right? Because I think that whenever you see women like Chrisean Rock out there, right? Bless her soul. She's only 22 years old. Bless her. The first thing, and one of the things a lot of guys say, a lot of people say, men and women, about young women like her is, oh, she needs a father, right? Which is true, which is why we're going to talk about that separately. But I think that that has allowed, once again, for the femininity to hide that there's another person who's actually just as important. And in fact, I would go as far as to say that a young woman's relationship with her mum is extremely important when it comes to stuff like this, because a lot of times, young ladies today, that you'll be surprised the types of dynamics of relationships they have with their mothers, and stuff like that. Also, just seeing those types of examples, because for example with Chrisean Rock, right, her mum is been addicted for years. She's been through addiction. She's been homeless. Her mum had 12 kids, so Chrisean is actually the 11th of 12 children. For her, in her mind, she might have already be ahead of her mum, because realistically she is, because she's the one paying for her mum's condo right now. She's the one who is looking after her. And she even said on this podcast I watched her on, what was it called again? Know for Sure. She even said, and the girls asked her, how do you feel about your parents? She said, I feel like I am their parent. Right? And this is where we start to have these issues, guys, because God created a balance and he created an order for a reason. Because us as women, when you're a young woman, your mother teaches you how to be a woman. Your mother teaches you about being a woman. Mothers are especially important when it comes to teaching you about how you value yourself, right? Alongside your father as well, which we'll talk about separately. And I always use this example of Kris Jenner and Kim Kardashian, because people will say, oh, how can Kim Kardashian be putting herself out there looking like that? She needs to value herself. And I'm like, but if you can't try to explain, you can't expect her to understand where you're coming from, when the very person who you utilized her body for financial gain, money and power and all of those things, the very person who gave birth to her, in whose womb she was spent 9 months in, the very person who brought her into this world, this person who's supposed to give her the mother's love, which is such a scam in modern society. I'm going to do a video about that eventually, but right now it's not the time yet. But it's a scam. And the fact that we just assume that is also what causes these situations, because we think, oh, it can't be because if you, and it's always like this, if you've experienced that, then you assume that's the only way it exists. And that doesn't happen. And that's why I was saying that I'm not attacking all parents, because it's not that different people in different situations. There are a lot of people who could not live without their the relationship with their mother. The relationship, who are women, right, the relationship with their mother is exactly why they value themselves, is exactly why they have all of these things. They've experienced the true mother's love. But then the problem becomes, we in society then project that and say, oh, everybody experiences the mother's love and it's rare that it doesn't happen. I would actually argue the opposite. I'd actually say that I don't think it's as common as we think it is at all, because it's evident in how people are treating themselves. Because these young women, like I said, Kris Jenner, she's the one who's taking the pictures of Kim K anyway. right? And the video to get her famous. So yes, she's actually part of the reason her daughter thinks this is acceptable behavior, because children learn from their parents. Parents are supposed to grow their children up in wisdom and in knowledge, right? So even what the Bible tells us to do, right? The Bible says, teach your child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it, right? As in, if you teach your child well from the inside, then when they are older, they will have that wisdom in order to conduct themselves. So the opposite is so if they're whatever you're seeing the output of what the input was, is what I'm trying to say here, if that makes sense. And that's why I think a lot of women today, you'll be surprised, guys, men would be surprised. And this is why I find it, this is why the snake goes for Eve, right? Because Eve, like women, we just get to hide in the background behind femininity and our nurturing nature and our lovingness and all of that. So people just trust us and they don't necessarily think about the power of the things that we do. But I often say to you guys, like I look at a lot of these mother-daughter relationships with a lot of these women, these modern women that are similar to Chrisean Rock, and you'll see that the mother dresses the exact same as a lot of these girls. The mother's also out here doing whatever. The mother's the one taking the Instagram photos to put online. Like, do you know what I'm saying? And so when you're coming along and saying to this girl, like, you should value yourself more, what the hell? Let's talk about babies and fatherhood, right? Her mother's out here just getting pregnant 12 times, living in total dysfunction. Her dad was incarcerated. So you trying to say like, oh, this is why I'm saying that the parenting is so important. It's so important about it, especially as a mother, because you're setting the tone. As a mother, if you're just out here easily getting pregnant, then to your daughter, that's not a big deal to just have babies that you don't look after, or that live in dysfunction. So then when we're judging younger women today who are doing the same thing, it's like, to them, they're like, but this is what my mom did, like this is what I grew up in, this is how I was looked after, like this is the norm. You see what I'm saying? When your mother, like, look at this, her mother, what was the state of her father, the man that she had children with, 12 children with, was incarcerated. So again, this is who her mother's picking. So you now expecting that somehow she is going to have some, I don't know where people expect people to get this information from, if not from their parents. Until obviously when you're older, you know, I don't want to say when you're older, but as you grow in wisdom, and as you seek wisdom and you acknowledge that you have to take accountability of your life, then you can learn these types of things. I think it comes from God. That's why I took God on as my parent, to be honest with you, so that he could just teach me in all of these things, because I needed that level. And that's why I always say that, you know, God is my true parent. But you know, where else is she going to get, if she hasn't grown up seeing it, where else is she going to see that? And she's 22 years old, mind you guys. So it's very interesting to me, again, how people will put all this pressure onto her and be like, you need to take accountability for yourself, and you need to do better, and you need this, me. But then you look at her parents, who are older people, who should have wisdom, right? Because they're older, who should have all of this. And it's like, oh, but you guys don't know how hard parenting is. You don't know how hard it is to have grown up in that environment. We all have our reasons why it's difficult to do these things. And it comes down to also, like I said, if that's the norm, if this is who my mum chose, I don't even know what it looks like to choose the right guy. I don't even know what it looks like to attract the right guy. And these are the things mothers are supposed to teach their daughters, right? Because they're supposed to have higher wisdom than that. These are the things parents are supposed to emulate for their children, so that they can so that a daughter can look at their dad and be like, whoa, how did mum like bag a man like him? I need mum to show me how to get a man like him, or, you know, and vice versa for everybody involved. Same with even sons, right? They need to from their father. They're like, oh wow, mum's just so much for dad. She's so in love with him. He's so in love with her. She looks after him. I need to know how to find a woman like mum. And so the dads, you know, also can teach their sons about that type of thing. And that's why I'm saying, guys, I hate to say it, but it's the truth, right? The highest, most important, that I was just thinking higher calling. I'm so funny. Anyway, not important. One of the most important jobs we'll ever have in this life is being a parent, guys. And unfortunately, in society, we're lessening the truth, the meaning, and the execution of that, right? Because even today now, how many times do parents even say stuff like, I put food on your table and clothes on your back and a shelter over your head? So you would do the same for a dog. You have a child. You're supposed to be helping nurture them. You're supposed to be creating an environment with boundaries, with discipline, with lessons, preparing them for life. And that's why so many people, once they get to adulthood, right? And I always say that I find this really annoying, how we do this thing where the second you become an adult, it goes, you're like 17, right? You're 17, and the day before your birthday, and at that moment your parents are responsible for you, and you still need wisdom, you still need knowledge, we're still going to have grace for you and understanding, because you're a child, you're still learning. And then literally the clock's 1 minute later, when it goes from 11:59 to midnight, and you're now 18. Now 100% you're all responsible for yourself. There's no other excuse for why anything could be happening. Nobody is accountable for you. You cannot expect anybody to help you in wisdom and in knowledge. You need to find out everything for yourself. You need to take accountability for yourself. How does that make any sense? Right? And that's why I think, again, also with the mother thing, like, mothers, I believe, we're really built to like be the, like, to really love our children to the point of like that level of love that they experience from us is also the standard of the love that they expect of others. And so when we don't, men and women, experience that, we don't know the level of love that we're supposed to be looking for because we haven't experienced it. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that her mom didn't love her. I'm not saying her mom wasn't well-meaning, but I'm saying the love is an action. So even for me, right, if I want to love somebody, I've got to also make sure that I'm active in making myself in learning the skills and doing the things that will love them the best way that they can be loved, if that makes sense. Because otherwise, so for example, like I'm trying to think of an example. So for example, here we go, like cooking. That's one of those things that I, as a woman, or as a man and a woman, everyone should learn how to cook. But like as a mother, if I need to learn how to cook, I need to take the time to actually learn how to cook so I can show my love through my cooking to my children. Like, I've taken the time to make this meal for you because I love you. I want to make sure I'm giving you something that's nutritious because I love you. So my love for you is that I want to see you live long. Because I want to see you live long, and because I want to look after you, I'm going to make sure you're eating something nutritious. I'm going to make sure you're eating something enjoyable. I'm going to make sure you eat something that makes you feel good. I'm going to make sure I make something that makes you feel like I made an effort, like you matter to me, because that's going to make you feel love. Like, and that's what I'm saying. Sometimes we have to be able, as people, especially as men and women, we have to be active in like pursuing these types of skills. So that's why, again, when it comes to parenting, it's not just about food, shelter, and a thing. And in fact, I think when people do say those phrases, I think it actually makes the child feel more of a burden, because it's like, you're the one who chose for me to be here, so stop trying to make me feel bad because I want to have a relationship with you where I feel like I actually matter to you. Stop trying to make me feel bad because I feel I chose the wrong person, because I don't even know what love is, and you feel like, oh well, I tried my best. Yeah, you did try your best. And I'm getting sick and tired of this as well, by the way, guys. Listen, I've decided I ain't gonna be one of these people making these excuses like, oh well, that's just how people grew up in the other generations, and they all came from dysfunction. So we all came from dysfunction, so we're all just gonna make an excuse every generation that, oh, like, oh yeah, well, I'm now gonna, so should I now just also, when I have children, make the excuse that, oh yeah, I came from dysfunction as well, so then when I create dysfunction for my children, then they're just gonna create the excuse. And that's how these generational curses start. That's how these generational curses go from generation to generation, right? And that's why we have to take these roles seriously. I'm not coming for motherhood or anything because I'm trying to criticize mothers out there. I'm trying to hold us accountable so we can actually do the things we say we're trying to do, right? So that we can actually create the society that we want to live in, so that the likes of Chrisean Rock, right, bless her soul, can not even want to be in the situation she's in, can value herself more highly, to know how to conduct herself better as a woman, and why it's not great to maybe be fighting all the time online and, you know, doing certain things, and not want to even be with that certain type of people because they value themselves. You know what I'm saying? And I think about all the time things I'll have to tell my daughter about myself, because I know it's going to directly affect what she thinks about herself. You see what I'm saying? And I've thought about that quite a lot, especially the man that I choose to be with. If she sees me with a man who just like doesn't respect me and whatever, like, she's going to think that's normal. And especially if I'm putting up with it, that's the other thing. Because when we as mothers, we put up with this stuff, right? And I'm not talking about having an attitude like, you better get yourself together and get you a job. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when you're in a relationship with somebody, you're not even married, or let's say that you are married, they're not even around, they've been cheating on you, they've been having other babies, and you're just staying in the relationship and calling it love. No wonder your daughter goes and ends up in that situation. And that's what a lot of mothers today are doing. I notice on social media, because on social media I always look at people's families. Whenever I see people's lives, good and bad, I always look back at the family, and the family is always a continuation. It's always a continuation unless somebody decides to do something different. And even people who've come from the most dysfunctional backgrounds, mothers or fathers, right? When they make the decision, even if they make loads of mistakes, we're all going to make mistakes, guys. That's why I just think it's weird that just because somebody's criticizing something doesn't mean they're saying that you should have done it perfectly. Just because I'm saying I'm criticizing mothers out there today in modern society doesn't mean I'm saying that you have to be the perfect mother. It's about mindset. It's about how you look at doing these things. It's about your overall attitude. And in fact, if you're just making an excuse, because that's what we've got to now. We've got to the point where now it's just like, oh, you can't say anything about mothers or fathers because mother's love is perfect and no one loves you more than your mother. And if that, and that's actually another toxic thing, because if that's true and we all say that, then that means people are going to see people who are not being loved, people are being abused, taken advantage of by their mothers. That's also going to see that as mother's love. So then that's what they're going to see. That's going to help them to see what love is. And then they're going to go and accept that kind of love. But then we're going to be like, oh, you shouldn't be in that toxic relationship. How about we solve the problem at the root? So I hope you guys understand where I was coming from, right? I'm not trying to come, like I said, I'm not trying to come for anybody. I understand it's hard. It's hard for all these different types of familial roles, right? But at some point, we've got to take accountability, because let's be real. Sorry to say it to all of us, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies, we're the ones who opened our legs, okay? So we need to stop putting the pressure onto the children of like, oh, well, you don't know how hard it is. You are the one who brought me here. If I knew it was going to be this hard for you, I wouldn't be here. That's how I feel like a lot of people feel deep down, and that's why I believe a lot of people are depressed, because deep down it's like, if I knew this was going to be such a burden for you, trust me, in fact, I will end this. And that's the problem. It's your decision. You take accountability. You don't make that person feel bad because you feel like you messed up, because now you regret it. That's on you. That's your opportunity to turn the situation around and use it as a learning lesson. Like, honestly, you could even say to your child, honestly, I know I've done so many. I love when I see parents who do this. I've seen this. I saw this with one parent and her daughter. Oh my gosh, it was so beautiful. I was bawling my eyes out. Jeannie Mai, and her mum. And they're from Vietnam, and so Jeannie was being, you know, molested by a family member, and her mum didn't believe her whole life. She ran away. They didn't speak for like 10 years. Now they like come back together, and it's really beautiful. And her mum actually had the humility to say, you know what, I tried my best and my best wasn't good enough, and I'm sorry that it wasn't, but blah blah blah. And they just had a really healthy conversation, and they were crying, and she finally acknowledged her daughter's feelings, and now they have such a close relationship. Jeannie's just had a baby, so now her mum's a grandma. They live right near each other, or I think her mother might even moved in. And all those things have been washed away because her mum was able to just admit that she knows that at the job that she did as a mother, and she failed her daughter. She was able to just say that, not make an excuse. She did explain herself, obviously, to say that, you know, I from where I come from, this is, and she's coming from a situation where, bearing in mind, a place like Vietnam, where like your parents, like you as a child, your parents don't care about anything like that. They don't care about your feelings. Do you know what I mean? So it was a miracle for her to do that, but she had a choice. She had a choice to either, you know, just be wallow in self-pity and victimhood and expect to be felt sorry for, or to acknowledge what happened. And then Jeannie was also simultaneously able to acknowledge, you know what, Mum, I appreciate that you tried your best, and I know it was hard for you, and I also understand the background you come from. I understand your dysfunction and what you went through and everything like that, because, you know, and then they were able to, as instead of it being like a, well, you don't know how hard it is to be a parent, and I put clothes on your back and I do this for you, and you just sound ungrateful trying to say that there was trauma in your life because of me. It didn't have to be that. Instead, it could be, I share my perspective, you share your perspective, we both appreciate where each other's coming from. As a child, I finally feel acknowledged, I finally feel validated, I understand better where you're coming from, and I feel that the fact that you acknowledge my feelings in and of itself is love, and it goes past just looking after me as though I were a pet. It goes up to the level of you really truly do love me, and you're happy that I'm here, and you're happy for me to be here, you know what I mean? And that's what was good. And then the mother could also you know, not be held accountable. Like she wasn't being expected to be perfect, you know what I mean? Her daughter could acknowledge, thank you so much, Mom, I appreciate everything that you did, truthfully I really do, and I understand. And so don't even put your pressure on yourself and like that. I don't expect you to be perfect. And that's where we should be. That's what we're supposed to do, not just, you know. And so that's why I think this motherhood role is highly important, highly important. And I think that we've been given a lot of this, oh, like we need fathers, which we do. That's another whole conversation which we're going to talk about next, right? But also the mothers play an equally important part in this type of stuff. And a lot of the reasons we're seeing a lot of this type of stuff today in young men and women is because women are conducting themselves, like mothers are conducting themselves in a way that allows this. Mothers are enabling or even supporting sometimes this type of stuff. And so obviously, because society doesn't want to blame parents, we don't even think about it. We don't even consider mothers in this scenario, right? Because we're all living under the mother's love, right? And then all that happens, you just have somebody like Chrisean Rock at 22, you know, probably fighting so hard to try and do better and be better. Meanwhile, everybody's just judging her. She's 22 years old. She's going through all these emotional feelings. Everybody's putting all this pressure on her. She's been an adult for like 3 whole years. You know what I'm saying? So anyways, you guys let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Don't forget to hit subscribe, and check out the next part where I'm going to be talking about why we need to start blaming fathers. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you understand my heart behind this video. I just want to see us all happy, thriving, and happy, balanced, loving families, because whatever starts in the home goes out into the world and it creates the world and the society that we live in, and society is clearly not thriving. And I think some of these tough subjects to deal with are the reason why it's not, and we need to finally rip out the root cause of these things and establish a more productive, positive, and successful society. Anyways, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. God bless you all, and I'll see you in my next one. Did I say if life's a game, then let's play to win? If life's a game, then let's play to win.